How y'all doing? Alright, well, this stuff is just kind of in the way. I'm stonewashing some blades at the moment. So they're just kind of sitting on my desk, but that's not really what I was looking at to do with this video. This guy is the YX-650, as you can see. It's ND2. And yeah, we do have titanium handles here with that fire kind of thing. It's a little interesting how they end up doing that. Or at least how I would assume that they end up doing that with a whole bunch of needles or, other kind of wires or whatever that have the electricity on there that they drag across. That's why a lot of times you can see that they'll stop there and it won't be continued on the inside. But yeah, this guy is a flipper. Kerchunk. You got a really interesting sort of thing here. Looks like I have just a little tiny bit of a roll on the tip here. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just absolutely crazy. Whatever. I just finished sharpening this guy. But yeah, I am really, really impressed with this thing. I don't know who made it for them, but this is a YX design, if you hadn't noticed. Yon Xanadu. It's probably all up in the video title and all that sort of good stuff. Let's see. I'm looking for... here we go. I can tell you that it did not come from this factory. This is another Yon Xanadu design. This is the 622. This is in G10. It's got a lot of really weak hardware and everything in there. But yeah, this is a double D10 knife anyway. Which I was pretty disappointed with. But this thing is much more robust in a lot of different ways. So yeah. Gotta love that word, yeah. We got the pocket clip here. How about if I close the blade so I don't have that right in my face? And you can see it's not exactly the widest patch, but it's not pinpoint or anything like that. Something you can see here if I don't have any hard shadows is that that pocket clip does not rest on the frame lock. Fantastic. Everything needs to do that because otherwise it makes it much more difficult for you to actually actuate the lock on it. So yeah, this one does have an external relief. That is something that I would personally appreciate not having, but I can understand on this. It's kind of built to a price, and the inside of this doesn't have any milling on it. So yeah, it does have a bit of heft. I will get to measurements here in a bit. But yeah, the pocket clip works pretty darn well. We do have a lanyard hole right here. It does go through the titanium back spacer, so you don't just have a hole sitting between a couple of scales there. We have T8 hardware all the way around, especially on the pivot here. Well, not especially on the pivot, but of course on the pivot, but everywhere else as well. The pocket clip and those. We'll probably have a T6 on the steel insert for the titanium lock bar. That's perfectly fine with me. Something that I also appreciate is that all these screws are flush. So it makes it very, very nice and like slabby to hold on to. You don't have any kind of little button head screws kind of causing any problems. This pocket clip seems to work pretty darn good. Really locks into the hand. I don't really have too much problems with it. It's not the absolute best clip in the known universe, but hey, what actually is, But works quite well. I don't really get too much in the way of hotspots on there or anything. We have quite a large, generous finger choil up here. Maybe just a little bit small for, my big digits, but for pretty much anybody with normal-sized hands or even just a little bit larger, it works fantastically. We got quite a bit of belly kind of going out here on the blade. And, yeah, we got, let's actually get that in focus. That would be nice. Yeah. Comes down to, not uber thin, so it's pretty darn strong all the way around here. Now you will actually see on the blade here, not so much on that side, a little bit on this side. Yeah, you can see some scratches and everything that's kind of gone there. I was playing around a little bit with my KME and decided to try to use that to reprofile rather than my belt grinder attachment from Worksharp thing. And yep, I got a little irritated because this particular knife seems to be quite hard. It was very difficult to actually get that reprofiled. This was probably right around, see, 18 and a half degrees or whatever. And I brought it down to 17 because that's kind of where I like D2. But yeah, I was using the 50 grit beast stone on the KME and the 140, and man, it just took forever. So I am kind of kicking myself on that. I probably could have just taken it to the belts and been pretty good to go to kind of bring it back in and then establish the V shape on there rather than the convex. And I probably wouldn't have got those scratches. But hey, I don't necessarily mind. Something I have noticed about the titanium here is that it's got a sandblast or bead blast kind of finish to it. That's very, very similar to Spyderco's titanium finish that they use on pretty much everything that comes out of their Taichung, Taiwan factory. And that does mean that over time you will get the titanium snail trails kind of going on there. But does offer a heck of a lot of grip friction sort of thing on there. Geez, yeah, even rubbing I can actually remove some crud from my fingers and whatnot. So yeah, it's very, very nice and comfortable. That flipper tab does not dig into my finger, and because I have ample length on there, I don't have to bunch my fingers up, which would shove it even further in there. So very, very nice and comfortable. We got some jimping on there. This is not a thin blade, as you can see. And yeah, we do have a little bit of a lock relief, or not lock relief, but scale relief right there with the flipper. That's just something I've seen a couple of companies do, like Harns and whatnot. Makes it a little nicer when your finger lands on that, especially if you're doing, well, I guess probably about the same between light switch and push button kind of deployments there. We do have stone washing on the flats, but we do have satin on the actual grinds there. There we go. So that's something that's not too intense. But it's not a very pronounced satin. So you do get a lot of reflections and whatnot. So that's kind of neat. I really do like the blade shape on this. Having that a little bit of a belly kind of out there with the downward cant. Does kind of remind me a little bit of the CJRB Rhea. Granted, that is a much smaller knife than this thing is. But yeah, that same kind of bulbous belly out there. Like I've said in the past with the Rhea, it does kind of remind me of some traditional Filipino style blade shapes, like a barong machete and stuff like that. But yeah, you can see we are rocking. It's basically 3.6 inches overall or whatnot, somewhere right around there. So yeah, this is a full-size beast of a knife. Yeah, liking this quite a bit. We have a little bit of a lock bar cutout on both sides here. And then we got a little bit of jimping. And that's all on the titanium, but we do have that steel insert there. Which doesn't look like that's easily seeable. But yeah, there you go. It's just a little notch right up top here that's actually interfacing with the blade. But it also acts as over travel stop there, as you can see. Yep. So yeah, this thing is pretty neat in general. It was pretty darn smooth out of the box, but I could feel a little bit of a grit even though it would drop shut like this. So I did kind of take it apart, and I'm going to do that in this video here. It was fairly gritty inside, so there was kind of that. Nothing that wouldn't work itself out or anything like that. But, you know, something to at least mention here. But, yeah, let's go ahead and pop this little duder open. I don't really need to remove that pocket clip, so I'll just leave it in place there. The screws that go in here, they're not they're barrels that screw in on both sides, so you can't just push this whole thing out from this side. So, you know, keep that in mind. It's not quite built like a Tucson. Pivot screw was a little difficult to actually get off of here. It does not have a D-shaped pivot. Unfortunately, that's a little bit of an unfortunate thing there. But putting pressure onto the blade by just kind of squeezing it shut gives you enough to kind of pop that out there. But yeah, so as soon as I took that off, I was, wow, this thing has dual row bearings. I thought this thing's been out for quite a while, because I certainly don't think this is new. But yeah, it did catch my eye for right around $50 or so. And yeah, as you can see, I mean, on the inside, we don't have the flame pattern that's kind of... yeah, it's not repeated on the inside there. We got the titanium back spacer, which I guess if you really didn't want that on there, because these barrels are the way that they are, you could remove it, I suppose. I don't know necessarily why you would, but it's definitely an option there. And yeah, we do have steel washers that sit on the titanium, so it's not riding on titanium. Now these things do have kind of the same issue that I've mentioned on the few Tucsons that also use these, looks like the same manufacturer's ceramic bearings and everything, is that they don't have the grooves in them that their single rows usually do, so you do lose just a little bit of a frictionless feel. Well, that's fine. The other thing I've noticed is that these guys in particular do have, you know, they spin a little bit in there. And that actually translates a little bit into a gritty feel when you're closing the knife, because this thing is actually kind of spinning along with it just a little bit, so you kind of feel that. That's something that will break in. It's not something you really need to worry about necessarily, but, you know, if you were spending, I don't know, 4 to 8 times the amount of money for this thing, then yeah, you'd probably bug you quite a bit there. Yeah, we have a fairly robust stop pin up here. Where is my measurement devices? There they are. Measuring them in inches usually is pretty useless for me, but there you go. If you want that in fractions. But yeah, it's probably like right around 3.5 millimeters for the stop pin on there. So fairly significant. It's fairly close out here to the side, but it's not really going to cause any kind of problems whatsoever there. But yeah, as I was mentioning, this thing does feel quite drop shutty out of the box, but it did have a little bit of that gritty kind of feel that made me kind of want to open them up. Now, kind of putting the pivot screw back on there is a little interesting because it does have a little bit of a difficulty when you're kind of starting out with it. That's fine. I think for me it just has to do with a little bit of Loctite and whatnot in there, but comes back together super nice. Doesn't have any wiggle to it whatsoever. Super nice and drop shutty, which is probably pretty hard not to do with a bearing knife. It's 3.5 inches and fairly thick with the blade stock on it. Yeah, super easy to put back together. Just a couple of screws. Does remind me quite a bit of a Tucson. Pretty sure they didn't make it. Otherwise, it would probably be under Tucson's name because Yon Xanadu has worked with them in the past. Yeah, it's a very, very nice knife. If, quite a bit on the heavy side. Yeah, we got basically 4 millimeters. This thing is, yeah, it's basically right at 4 for the blade stock thickness on that. And yep, as I've sharpened this down to 17 degrees, it's not the exact thinnest thing behind the edge there. It's not quite as bad as the QSP Gavio that I just kind of recently take a look at. Not tooken. I don't like that. That I had just recently looked at. But, it's definitely ground a little bit more for crazy hard use. And that certainly makes sense. Let's go back over to the inches. And, yeah, it's just 0.51 of an inch. So just slightly thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. Am I right now? Okay. Than the paramilitary 2 from Spyderco. Speaking of which, I guess I can do a couple of not price comparisons, but size comparisons. That's the word I'm looking for here. Let's see. All right, we can go with the Benchmade 940. Yeah, obviously much larger, or this guy is much larger than that. We got the paramilitary 2, which, hey, it's not too bad. This thing obviously has a little bit more of an extension on the finger choil there. I do have to say, even though these things don't have a sharpening choil, their finger choils really do feel a lot safer to me than most of these that are right next to the blade. That's probably just personal preference since I've been used to those for a long time. Chunk. There's the rat number 1. It's pretty similar in overall size and all that sort of stuff. I have seen that I think Knife Center just recently released. I know the Model 1. I'm not quite sure of the Model 2, but I think so. They've released these in D2 steel, but with micarta scales rather than these fairly slick nylon ones, which is really tempting, but I already have everything except for the scales, and the knife is exactly the same, so I don't really feel like I have the need to buy it, but it's tempting, I'll tell you that. And here we go, here's a Kalashnikov 74, the standard version of it, and yeah, it's a little bit bigger. Let's see, where have I put that? I've lost it somewhere. It's in these drawers here. Ah, here we go. Yeah. I don't know if I had mentioned it before, but well, it's worrisome. Maybe it's just a little too tight. But I did get the baby one here in the last little while. This thing's it's a bit small, so I'm glad it wasn't the first one that I decided to purchase. Yeah, I have that pivot a little bit too tight, so I shall adjust that. Yeah, so kind of the elephant in the room here with this guy. If you are not into some bulkier knives or heavier knives, this probably isn't the one for you. As, yeah, it's a titanium frame lock that's coming in just a little under 6 ounces. 169 grams. It is not an insignificant amount of metal in your hand. It does feel quite a bit like the amount of titanium and whatnot that you'd get in some Hinderer designs. Obviously, the fit and finish isn't going to be quite as nice as those, but heck, those are literally 10 times the price of this. As I said, I got this thing for about $50, and a lot of Hinderers go for, what, $450 to $600? And then all of their customizations and stuff on top of that. Yeah, they're not a cheap knife. But, yeah, this thing is very, very impressive to me. Actually do want to get a little bit more time with cutting with it and to kind of wear it around and everything. Something that I haven't done with it yet is that I do plan on doing pretty soon here is applying me some Tough Glide to it. Because, well, this is D2, and I generally don't have problems with D2 here in the greater Denver, Colorado area, since it's quite dry here. But still, I mean, if I have something put away for quite a while, I really don't want to come back to it and have little rust spots or anything like that on there. So this does a pretty darn good job, and it's really easy to apply. So there you go. But yeah, really, really, really like this knife. Even a lot more than I thought I was going to. It is danged impressive. Out of the box, on my little best tester here, this guy here, as you've seen on probably several other channels, possibly, like ODC for EDC and whatnot. It got about 230, so fairly decent. You know, it's not like anything that's going to blow you away, but still very, very sharp. It is quite nice now, too. I mean, obviously it was able to slice paper before, but now it's at a 17-degree polished finish and all that sort of stuff. I still need to strap it up, though. I do, even though I've used some lapping films on it and everything, I'm still feeling little chunks here and there. So, yeah, it's time to take that to the strap. But I won't bore you with that. Yeah, pretty darn fantastic. If you are looking for kind of a harder use knife, pretty darn large and all that sort of good stuff, this is certainly a good one for your $50 or so. All right. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your day, yo.